My son told his investors that I was too damaged to come to the Christmas dinner. 3 hours later, I was on the phone with CNN. Let's start from the beginning. My name is James Carter. I'm 59 years old, a master sergeant with 2 tours in Iraq under my belt. I have a Purple Heart sitting framed on my kitchen table and a titanium plate in my left leg from an IED blast that almost killed me in 2005. I also have a son named Daniel, who runs a startup in Palo Alto. Or rather, he used to run it, a company valued at $2.8 million. You see, there's something about military families that civilians just don't get. When we say no man left behind, it doesn't end when you come home, especially when that man is your father. Daniel forgot that lesson on December 18th. What I did next reminded him why Purple Hearts aren't sold, they're earned. Subscribe if you believe military sacrifices deserve respect. The story really began 8 years ago when I made the most important financial decision of my life. Daniel had just graduated from Stanford with his MBA, a degree that cost $180,000, of which I covered $45,000 from my disability payments. He had this startup idea logistics software for small businesses. Smart kid always was. But smarts don't pay for an office in Silicon Valley. Smarts don't buy the servers and hardware needed to compete with the giants. Daniel needed real money, and banks aren't exactly lining up to fund 23-year-olds with no track record, but big dreams and even bigger student loans. That's when I made my decision. Let me tell you about my disability payments. After the IED incident in Fallujah, March 15, 2005, a date you remember, I was medically discharged with a 70% disability rating. Shrapnel tore up my left leg, damaged the nerves, required 3 surgeries and $47,000 in medical bills, eventually covered by the VA. The monthly payment was $4,150 like clockwork, every month. Over 8 years, that came to $380,000. I gave every single cent to Daniel, but it wasn't enough. Daniel needed more for equipment, office rent, hiring staff. The bank demanded collateral, guarantees, someone with a solid credit history to co-sign a $450,000 business loan. And then I did something I never thought I'd do. I sold my Purple Heart. Before you judge me, understand what that medal meant. I received it lying in a hospital in Germany, not knowing if I'd ever walk again. It symbolized 2 tours, 24 months away from home, and the moment I chose to save a wounded Marine instead of taking cover myself. The shrapnel that put me in that hospital hit me while I was dragging Corporal Mark Reyes behind a concrete barrier under heavy fire. The Purple Heart wasn't just a medal. It was proof that I bled for something bigger than myself. I sold it to a collector for $15,000. Daniel cried when I told him. Real tears. I hadn't seen those since he was 12 and broke his arm falling off his bike. Dad, I can't let you do that. That's your legacy. No, son, I replied. You are my legacy. This is just metal and ribbon. The startup took off. Daniel was a genius, I'll admit it. His logistics platform caught the eye of big players. Within 3 years, he was landing contracts worth hundreds of thousands. By year 5, major tech companies started circling, wanting to buy him out. Last month, Daniel got an offer, $2.8 million for the company. His share after investors and employee payouts was about $1.6 million, enough to secure his future. I was proud, truly proud. My boy had made it in a world I didn't understand, using money earned with my blood in a desert on the other side of the world. Then December 18th came. I live in a 650-square-foot apartment in Redwood City. In $200 a month, that's affordable housing for a disabled veteran in the Bay Area. My walls are decorated with Army photos, letters of commendation, and an empty frame where the Purple Heart used to hang. I'd been planning the Christmas dinner for weeks. Nothing fancy, I'm not much of a cook, but I bought a small turkey, stuffing mix, cranberry sauce, a simple meal like we had when Daniel was a kid, and money was tight. On the 18th, I called him to confirm the time. What time should I come on the 24th? I asked. A pause. A long pause. I heard voices in the background, the The typical startup office hustle. "Dad," Daniel said, and his voice took on that careful tone people use when they're about to deliver bad news. "We weren't expecting you for Christmas." "What do you mean? We discussed it last month." Another pause. Then I heard him talking to someone else, muffling the phone. "It's my dad, the one I told you about." A cold feeling settled in my gut. "Daniel, who are you talking to?" "The whole team's in the office. We're working on the deal paperwork. Look, this is really important for us. Catherine's family is coming from Seattle, and her parents, well, they're not like what you're used to. Maybe we can meet in January." "Not like what I'm used to." Catherine, his fiancée, came from old tech money. Her father founded a software company in the 90s and sold it for hundreds of millions, the kind of people who summer on Martha's Vineyard and think a Purple Heart is something you buy at an army surplus store. "Son, I was preparing dinner." His voice sharpened. I heard him walking somewhere, probably to a quieter spot. "You know how you get sometimes, the nightmares, the episodes. Catherine's family isn't used to that. PTSD makes people uncomfortable." The line went quiet. Not just quiet, dead silent, because everyone in that office had just heard my son call his Purple Heart father damaged goods. And then I heard laughter. Quiet, professional laughter, but laughter nonetheless. The kind privileged people use when laughing at their business partner's awkward relatives. You won't believe what I did next. Daniel didn't know I'd been recording our conversations for the last 6 months, an old army habit. In Iraq, we documented everything. Radio chatter, briefings, debriefings. Cover your 6, as we said. When you make life and death decisions, you want evidence. Who said what and when. Ever since the company's sale talks started, Daniel had been acting strange. Short calls, rare visits, always excuses about investor pitches and due diligence. I started recording. Something told me things weren't right. A father's intuition, maybe. Good thing I did. "Daniel," I said, keeping my voice calm, "put me on speaker." "Dad, it's not—" "Put me on speaker, son. If my PTSD is something your team needs to know about, let's discuss it openly." I heard him sigh. Then an echo, meaning the speaker was on. "Okay, Dad, you're on speaker." "Good. So, who exactly am I speaking with?" A pause. "It's my development team. We're discussing the final details of the deal." "Perfect. Ladies and gentlemen, if any are present, my name is Master Sergeant James Carter, U.S. Army, retired. I served 2 tours in Iraq and received a Purple Heart in Fallujah. I am also the person who funded your company." Silence. Complete silence. "Daniel, remind everyone how much of your startup was built on my disability payments." "Dad, please. $380,000, Daniel, plus $15,000 from the sale of my Purple Heart. That's $395,000 of a veteran's blood money, and you built your little tech empire on it." I heard someone whisper, "Holy shit." "Now, Daniel, explain to your team why my PTSD makes people uncomfortable." "Dad, you don't understand the situation." "I understand perfectly. You're ashamed of your father. You're ashamed that your company's seed capital came from a disabled veteran living in a $1,200 apartment. You're ashamed that while Catherine's father was getting rich selling software, your father was taking bullets in Fallujah." The silence stretched. I pictured Daniel standing there, red with shame, his carefully constructed professional image crumbling in real time. "Here's what I understand about your situation, son. You have 48 hours until the deal closes. The investors are breathing down your neck, and you have a $450,000 equipment loan that I co-signed." I heard a female voice. "Co-signed for what loan?" "Oh, Daniel didn't mention? I'm on the paperwork for your equipment servers, hardware, office furniture, all bought on credit with my name next to his." Panic erupted in the background, rustling papers, frantic keyboard clicks. "Dad," Daniel's voice trembled. "What do you mean?" "I mean that disabled veterans might make people uncomfortable, son. But bankruptcy makes investors uncomfortable." I let that statement hang for 10 seconds. 10 seconds of dead air while the Stanford graduates processed what they'd just heard. You know what, Daniel? You're right. You weren't expecting me for Christmas. But then again, you probably weren't expecting this call either. Dad, wait. Roger that, son. Carter out. I hung up. For the next 30 minutes, the phone rang nonstop. Daniel. Again and again. I didn't answer. Finally, I checked the voicemails. First message, Dad, please call back. We can work this out. Second, Dad, the team is panicking about the loan. Let's talk. Third, Dad, I'm sorry. Please don't do anything. Fourth, interesting. Mr. Carter, this is Bradley Lee from Daniel's legal team. We urgently need to discuss the equipment loan. Please call. I deleted it without finishing the number. Fifth, Dad, Catherine says her parents would love to meet you. We'll do dinner like you wanted. Please call back. Too late, son. Too late. I walked to the kitchen table where the empty frame sat next to a stack of financial documents I'd gathered for just such an occasion. Bank statements with every transfer to Daniel highlighted, the check from the Purple Heart sale, the loan agreements with our signatures. But the most important document was on top, the business card of Sarah Lee, a military correspondent for CNN. I'd met Sarah at a Veterans Day event last year. She'd given me her card and said, "If you ever have a story about how we treat veterans, call me." I picked up the phone and dialed. "Sarah, it's James Carter. We met at the Veterans event in San Jose. You said to call if I had a story." "Of course, James. What's happening?" "How about an exclusive about a Purple Heart veteran whose son just told his investors that his father's PTSD makes people uncomfortable?" A pause. "I'm listening. It gets better. The son built his company on his disabled father's money and is about to close a $2.8 million deal. How quickly can you get here?" I smiled for the first time in hours. "How quickly do you need me?" After talking to Sarah, I sat in the kitchen for exactly 7 minutes. Not 6, not 8, 7. In the Army, we were taught to pause before irreversible decisions. 7 minutes to consider consequences, alternatives, and points of no return. Daniel is my only child. His mother, Helen, died when he was 16. Cancer took her quickly and brutally. For the last 15 years, it's been just the two of us. Every birthday, graduation, milestone together. But respect isn't inherited. It's earned daily. I opened my laptop a 5-year-old Dell Daniel gave me for Christmas, back when he still remembered where his money came from. I opened the loan agreement with First National Business Credit, $450,000 for equipment, signed 18 months ago. Daniel Carter, primary borrower. James Carter, co-signer. The terms were clear. Either party could demand full repayment within 72 hours if they believed the loan was at risk. As the co-signer, I had that right. I also had something else. Daniel's credit was heavily tied to this loan. One default and his rating would tank. One default during the deal, and it would evaporate faster than morning fog. At 9 a.m., I called First National's loan department. "This is Jennifer." "Jennifer, this is James Carter, co-signer on loan number." I dictated the number. "I'd like to exercise the right of early recall. May I have your SSN and the borrower's name?" I provided the details. "Mr. Carter, the next payment isn't due until January 15th. Is there a reason for the recall?" "Business relations with the borrower have deteriorated. I'm no longer confident in his ability to service the debt." "I see. The full balance, $427,062, must be repaid within 72 hours. Are you sure?" $427K. Daniel would have to liquidate everything to find that kind of money, if he even could. Most likely the equipment would be repossessed, the business would collapse, and the deal would vanish. "I'm sure. Notification will be sent to the borrower within 2 hours." "Thank you, Jennifer." I hung up and immediately called my bank. Daniel occasionally transferred me money, $500, $1,000 here and there. Guilt payments, I called them. But I wanted to make sure my finances were in order before the war started. Current balance is $8,112, the automated voice reported. Not much, but enough to hire a lawyer if Daniel decided to get tricky. Then I called the management company for Daniel's office building. This is Amanda. Amanda, this is James Carter. My son Daniel rents an office in your building in Palo Alto. I'm trying to reach him. Family emergency. Is he in the office? Yes, Mr. Carter. The light is on in suite 340. Thank you. He was there, probably panicking, trying to solve the loan issue. Good. Let him feel the pressure. I took out a yellow legal pad old school, but sometimes the best tools are the simplest, and started making a list. Evidence in my possession. Complete financial history of transfers to Daniel. Recording of today's call. Check from Purple Heart sale. Loan documents with both signatures. Military records, medical records from Iraq media contacts. Sarah Lee, CNN. Mike Chang, Stars and Stripes. Local news. Timeline, loan recalled, 72 hours. CNN interview tomorrow. Deal deadline, 48 hours. The math was simple. Daniel had 48 hours to close the deal and 72 to repay the loan. But without the equipment, the deal was impossible. And without repaying the loan, the equipment would be seized. Checkmate in 2 moves. The phone vibrated, a text from Daniel. Dad, we need to talk urgently. I replied, busy until Christmas. You understand? I have episodes. And turned off the phone. I had a CNN interview and 24 hours for Daniel to learn what happens when you bite the hand that feeds you, especially when that hand earned a Purple Heart. By 6 a.m., Daniel had left 14 voicemails. I listened to them all over coffee, watching the sunrise. First, message anger. Dad, what are you doing? You can't destroy my company over a dinner. By the 7th panic. Dad, the bank says I have 72 hours. It's impossible. 14th desperation. Dad, I'm begging you. I'll do anything. I'll buy a house. Please don't do this. I deleted them all and drove to the CNN studio in San Francisco. Sarah met me at 8 a.m. Younger than I expected, around 35, with the kind of energy good reporters have. She handed me coffee and led me to an interview room. James, before we start, I need to understand the core. Your son built his business on your disability money? I showed her the folder. $380K over 8 years, plus $15K for the medal. Every transfer highlighted in yellow. She flipped through the statements, her face growing graver. And he said, your PTSD makes people uncomfortable. Yes. In front of his entire team, I have a recording. Her eyes widened. You recorded the conversation? Army habit. Want to hear it? For 20 minutes, Sarah listened to my son call his veteran father damaged goods. Her face shifted. Shock, anger, cold professional focus. James, this is explosive. But are you sure? After this airs, there's no going back. I remembered Daniel as a kid, how proud he was when I showed up in uniform for school events. I remembered the night I told him I was selling the medal, how he cried and said I was the best father in the world, and yesterday's call. I'm sure. The interview lasted 2 hours. Sarah asked tough but fair questions. Isn't this a family loan? Don't you share some responsibility for lacking boundaries? I answered honestly. Maybe I spoiled him. Maybe I should have had a formal agreement. But disrespect can't be fixed with paperwork. At 11 a.m. we finished. Sarah said the piece would air in the evening broadcast and be online by noon. One more thing, she added. Stars and Stripes wants to do a follow-up on veteran family dynamics. Are you okay with that? Absolutely. I returned home and turned on my phone. 23 missed calls from Daniel, 6 from unknown numbers, lawyers and partners. At 12:47 p.m. the phone rang. Dad, tell me you didn't give an interview to CNN. I did. You're destroying everything I've worked for. No, son. I'm teaching you the price of dishonor. This isn't about honor, it's revenge over a dinner. I let the words hang. Daniel, when you sold your first contract for $50,000, who did you call first? You. And when you hired your first employee? Dad, that's not the point. When the Stanford Business Review wrote about you, who did you thank? Silence. You said, "My father sacrificed everything so I could chase my dream." Those were your words. That was before I became successful enough to be ashamed of where the money came from. I heard his shaky inhale. Dad, the investors are panicking. If the deal falls through, you'll learn what every soldier knows. Actions have consequences. It's $2.8 million, and you have a $427,000 debt. On a loan I co-signed. You have, I checked my watch, 58 hours left. Where am I supposed to get that kind of money? Maybe ask Catherine's parents. I hear they're good with business. The line went silent. When Daniel spoke again, his voice was colder. Dad, you're not yourself. Maybe you should talk to someone. The VA has counselors for people like you. For people like me. There it is again. You know what, Daniel? You're right. I already talked to someone. To Sarah Lee and to Mike Chang from Stars and Stripes. They were very interested in how the son of a Purple Heart recipient could call his father's injuries awkward. Dad, stop. Funny thing, journalists love stories about successful young people forgetting where they came from. I hung up and immediately called the leasing company. This is Robert. Robert, James Carter, co-signer on lease. Off? What are my rights in case of default? In case of default, we have the right to repossess the equipment immediately. How long does repossession take? 24 or 48 hours after notification. Perfect. Daniel had 58 hours to repay or 48 to lose all the equipment. A text from an unknown number. Mr. Carter, this is Bradley Lee, Daniel's attorney. We need to discuss the situation urgently. I replied, discuss what? The math? Then I drove to the VA to get a complete copy of my military file. If this was war, I needed to be armed to the teeth. After all, I was trained by the best army in the world. Daniel was about to learn what happens when you pick a fight with a master sergeant. Daniel showed up at my door at 7 p.m. I heard his Tesla pull into the parking lot, that distinct electric hum and a door slam louder than usual. He looked terrible. Disheveled hair, a wrinkled hoodie, red eyes. Dad, we need to talk. I opened the door before he knocked. He walked in and immediately saw the empty frame on the table. His face twitched like when he was a kid and knew he was in trouble. Dad, are you destroying my life over a dinner? Sit down, Daniel. He sat on the edge of the couch, head in his hands. The interview already has 3 million views. The investors are asking questions I can't answer. Like what? They're asking if the business was built on charity. They're asking if I can run a company without your money. They're asking why I publicly humiliated a Purple Heart recipient. And what did you tell them? I said it was a misunderstanding, that you were having an episode and misinterpreted my words. Episode, again. Daniel, do you know what PTSD really is? He looked up, surprised by the question. It's combat trauma, post-traumatic stress disorder. Some veterans have flashbacks, nightmares, anxiety attacks. Some can't be in crowds or tolerate loud noises. Some can't hold jobs or maintain relationships. I leaned forward. Now tell me, son, which of those symptoms have you ever seen in me? He was silent for a long time. You have nightmares sometimes. Once every few months, usually around the anniversary of my injury. That's not PTSD. That's called being human. But you, I never said I had PTSD. You assumed it because it was convenient. It gave you an excuse to be ashamed of your father without admitting you were actually ashamed of the poverty. Daniel stood up and started pacing the room. This isn't about money, Dad. It's about fitting in. Catherine's family moves in different circles. They wouldn't understand. Understand what? That in some families, people sacrifice for each other instead of just writing checks. That's not fair. I took out the default notice that had arrived that afternoon. You want to talk about fair? This is a notice of default on your loan. You have 36 hours or all the equipment gets repossessed. His face went white. Dad, please, I'll pay it all back with interest. 10%, 15%, whatever you want. When? After the deal closes, in 2 weeks. What if the deal falls through because the equipment is seized tomorrow? It can't be. It can. This deal is your future. I stood and walked to the table where the documents lay like battle plans. Your war stories aren't important anymore, I said, recalling his words. I was upset. I didn't mean it. You meant every word. I held up the check from the medal sale. This medal, 24 months in the desert, 3 surgeries, 2 years of rehab. I sold it for $15,000 so you could chase your dream. Daniel was crying. Real tears. Dad, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Sorry doesn't fix this, son. Respect does. And respect isn't a promise made in panic. It's something you demonstrate every day. What should I do? I looked at him, the successful, smart, broken young man who had forgotten the difference between achievement and character. I want you to understand. Honor isn't inherited, Daniel. It's earned, lost, and sometimes, if you're lucky, regained. He left after 10 minutes, no closer to a solution than when he arrived. But for the first time in months, I felt like I was talking to my son, not his PR team. By 8 a.m., Daniel began his counterattack. My neighbor, Mrs. Lee, no relation to the reporter, knocked with her tablet. James, you need to see this. Your son is saying terrible things. She showed me a post Daniel had made on LinkedIn at 6:47 a.m. Yesterday, my father appeared on CNN to discuss our family's difficulties with his PTSD and related mental health challenges. While I deeply respect his military service, I am concerned about his recent episodes and unstable behavior. We are seeking professional help to support his recovery. I ask for privacy for our family during this difficult time. Support our veterans. On mental health awareness, Family First. 847 likes, 312 comments in 90 minutes. I scrolled through the comments. So brave to speak about family mental health. PTSD is no joke. Your father needs help, not a platform. Now it makes sense why CNN interviewed him, a classic veteran breakdown. But there were others. Wait, didn't he fund your startup with his disability money? Something's off about this story. Why would CNN interview someone mid-breakdown? I called Sarah immediately. James, I saw the post. How are you holding up? I'm fine, but Daniel is trying to control the narrative by calling me unstable. I figured. I have good news and bad news. Stars and Stripes wants a full feature, but Daniel's PR team is pushing an alternate version. Unstable veteran threatens son's business. They're painting you as a father who can't handle his son's success. And the media is buying it. Some are. But I've been a war correspondent for 8 years. I know the difference between a breakdown and disrespect. Your interview was clear, logical, and backed by documents. What's next? I'm trying to get you on 60 Minutes, but Daniel's team is aggressive. They sent a cease and desist letter demanding you stop public statements. I almost laughed. They want me to stop talking about my own money. Worse, they're claiming the Purple Heart sale is a sign of impaired judgment, and the family has long been concerned about your mental state. After the call, I sat at the kitchen table, staring at Daniel's post. Likes were already at 593. The comments were getting nastier. This veteran is clearly unwell. Someone should call the VA crisis line. Feel sorry for the son having to deal with this publicly. But I noticed something interesting. Some comments were deleted. Daniel was curating the discussion, leaving only what supported his version. The phone rang. Mike Chang from Stars and Stripes. Sergeant Carter, I've been following the story. We're not buying the mental health angle. Why not? I've interviewed hundreds of veterans. You don't sound like someone having an episode. You sound like someone who was insulted and has the evidence to prove it. I smiled. Accurate assessment. Here's what I think. Daniel is trying to focus on your health, but the real story is about financial exploitation within families. I want to publish the numbers. Exactly. $380K in disability, $15K for the medal, plus co-signing a $450K loan. That's $845K total. His startup sold for $2.8 million. He turned my sacrifice into millions and called me damaged to avoid inviting me to dinner. This isn't a mental health story. It's a story about ingratitude and exploitation. Can I come over today? I want to photograph the empty frame, the statements, everything. Of course. After the call, I did something I hadn't done in years. I created a Facebook account. If Daniel wanted to play on social media, I'd play. My first post. My name is James Carter. I'm a Purple Heart veteran who sold his medal and gave all his disability payments to fund his son's startup. Yesterday, he told partners my PTSD makes people uncomfortable. Today, he claims I'm mentally unstable for objecting. You decide who's telling the truth. I attached a photo of the empty frame and the bank statements. Within 2 hours, the post was shared 600 times. The war for public opinion had begun. By noon, 2,000 reposts, friend requests pouring in. Veteran groups across the country were writing, "This is what happens when you sacrifice everything for your kids." But I knew. Social media momentum is fragile. To win, I needed irrefutable proof. I spread all the documents on the kitchen table and began building my case, like in Iraq, methodically, cross-referenced, airtight. The financial trail, 8 years of statements, $4,750 from VA, $4,750 to Daniel within 48 hours. Check from Heritage Military Collectibles, $15,000 for the Purple Heart, March 15, 2018. Loan documents, $450,000. Daniel borrower, James co-signer. I photographed everything, a digital archive that couldn't be destroyed. But the most damning evidence was the recording. I had it enhanced, every word crystal clear, including the phrase, "PTSD makes people uncomfortable," and the team's laughter. A call from Sarah. "James, 60 Minutes is interested, but they need to independently verify the documents." "What do they need?" "Bank statements, military file, medical records, authentication of the recording." "The recording is real, Sarah." "I believe you. But 60 Minutes has to be impeccable. They're sending an audio expert. Can you meet tomorrow?" "Of course." "One more thing. Daniel hired Keller and Associates." I knew the name, an expensive, ruthless PR firm specializing in scandals. "What are they saying?" "Pushing the narrative that you've been mentally unstable since your discharge, that the family has long been concerned, and the CNN interview is a cry for help, not a complaint." "On what grounds?" "The thing is, James, they don't need proof. They need doubt. If people doubt your sanity, the story becomes veteran has a meltdown, not son betrayed father." After the call, I called the VA. "I need my complete medical records and psychological evaluation results. Someone is claiming I have severe PTSD. "I can have them ready tomorrow morning." Then my former commander, Colonel Robert Hazen. "Tom, it's James Carter." "What the hell, Sergeant? What's going on?" I explained. "That's bullshit, James. You were one of the most level-headed sergeants. Even after your injury, you showed no signs of instability." "Sir, are you willing to confirm that to a journalist?" "Absolutely. Send me the contacts." Last call, Dr. Linda Harper, the VA psychologist who evaluated me in 2006. "Dr. Harper, this is James Carter. You evaluated me after my injury in Iraq." "I remember you. How are you?" "Someone is claiming I have severe PTSD. What do your records say?" "According to my notes, you had mild adjustment difficulties, typical for veterans, but no signs of PTSD, depression, or other disorders. Psychological state within normal limits." "Are you willing to confirm that to a journalist?" "With your consent, yes." By evening, I had what any intelligence officer would call an ironclad case. 8 years of financial records, authenticated audio recording, medical documents, character references from commander and psychologist, proof of Daniel's success built on my sacrifices. But I had one more piece of evidence Daniel didn't know about. I opened my email and found a message he sent 6 months ago on Independence Day, after a few too many drinks at a company party. Subject: "Thank you for everything, Dad." In it, he wrote, I know I rarely say this, but everything I have is because of your sacrifice. The money from the Purple Heart, the disability payments, even co-signing the loans. You gave me opportunities most people only dream of. I promise I'll make you proud and never forget how much you've done for me. I forwarded the email to Sarah with a note. Proof of his true feelings before success went to his head. Daniel wanted to make this about my mental health. Game on, son. A call at 6:23 a.m. on Friday. Sarah, barely containing her excitement. James, it's happening. Daniel agreed to a live CNN interview to rebut the false accusations. You're both invited on Anderson Cooper at 7 p.m. Pacific. 30 million viewers. And he agreed? His PR team thinks you'll have an episode on live TV and confirm their version. I smiled. They're about to learn why you never ambush a master sergeant. James, this is a chance to tell the truth to millions, but it's risky. If they make you look unstable, they won't, because I'm not unstable. In the morning, I picked up my complete file from the VA, then went to the CNN studio for technical prep. The audio expert, Dr. Rachel Kim, a serious woman. Mr. Carter, the recording is completely authentic. No signs of tampering. Voice patterns match other interviews with Daniel. So it can be used on air. It's irrefutable. Sarah explained the format. Anderson will start with your story, then bring Daniel in. In the final segment, you'll both be on screen. Stay calm. Stick to the facts. Roger that. One more thing. An hour ago, Daniel's team leaked a statement to the press. Mr. James Carter's behavior has become increasingly erratic, threatening his son's business, harassing investors, attempting to sabotage the deal. The family is filing for a restraining order to protect Daniel. They filed for a restraining order. The judge denied it after reviewing the evidence. Turns out, recalling a loan you co-signed isn't harassment. It's a legal right. At 6:45 p.m., I sat in the CNN studio, a lapel microphone. On the monitor, Daniel in the green room. Impeccable suit, a team of 3 around him, lawyers, PR specialists, coaches. I was alone. Just Sarah, who gave a final piece of advice. Remember, 30 million are watching. This isn't just about you and Daniel anymore. It's about every veteran betrayed by their own family. Anderson's voice in my earpiece. Good evening. Tonight, a story that has captivated the country. A Purple Heart veteran claims his son built millions on his disability money and called him too damaged for Christmas dinner. A red light lit up. With me is James Carter. James, tell us what happened. For 12 minutes, I laid out the case. Financial records, medal sale, 8 years of payments. Your son claims you have mental episodes, and this interview is a cry for help. How do you respond? I held up a document. This is the official VA assessment. Patient shows no signs of PTSD, depression, or disorders. Mental state within normal limits. Anderson examined the document on air. This contradicts your son's claims. Yes. We should note that CNN has independently verified all of Mr. Carter's financial and military documents. Now, let's bring in Daniel Carter. Daniel appeared on screen confident, composed, with perfect posture. Daniel, your father claims you built your business on his money and rejected him because of PTSD. Is that true? Anderson, my father has suffered from mental health issues since his discharge. We've tried to help, but he refused. This interview is a cry for help. But did you tell your team that his PTSD makes people uncomfortable? Daniel hesitated for a moment. That conversation was taken out of context. Actually, Anderson said, we have the audio recording. Let's listen. The recording played. Daniel's voice clear. You know how it gets, the nightmares, the episodes. PTSD makes people uncomfortable. And the team's laughter. Daniel's face paled as his words played in 30 million homes. Daniel, Anderson continued, that seems pretty clear. You said exactly that. That was a private conversation recorded without my consent. Do you deny saying those words? No, And is it true your father invested nearly $400,000 of his disability payments? He helped me get started. Helped. According to the documents, he transferred his entire monthly payment to you for 8 years. That's not help, that's full financial support. I watched his PR strategy crumble. Now, Anderson said, let's bring father and son together for a final segment. The screen split. We were looking at each other for the first time in 3 days. James, what would you like to say to your son? I looked straight at Daniel, ignoring the cameras. Son, remember what you said when I told you I was selling the Purple Heart? His voice trembled. I said I couldn't let you do that. And what did I say? You said that I was your legacy. Right, you were my legacy. Proof that my sacrifice meant something. But legacy isn't just what you build. It's also how you honor what came before you. Tears streamed down his cheeks. Dad, I'm sorry. Sorry isn't enough anymore, son. Respect is. And respect isn't promised in a panic on national TV. It's shown every day. Anderson turned to Daniel. Your father gave everything for your success. What do you say? Daniel completely broke down. I was ashamed. Catherine's family, so much money. I didn't want them to know my father lives in a tiny apartment and worked as a janitor after his injury. I wanted them to think I was from their world. So you erased your father from your success story? Yes, and I hate myself for it. The studio fell silent. Daniel sobbed on live TV. 30 million watched a son realize he had betrayed the man who sacrificed everything for him. James, Anderson asked, what now? I looked at my son, broken, successful, lost young man who had forgotten the difference between achievement and character. Now Daniel learns what every soldier knows. Honor isn't inherited. It's earned daily, and sometimes, if you're lucky, it can be regained. The broadcast ended. Daniel crying, me sitting calmly, and between us, the empty frame. By morning, the video had 23 million views. Daniel's deal was officially dead. Justice was served. 6 months later, Daniel knocked on my door at exactly 6 p.m. on a Sunday. He'd been doing this every week since the CNN interview. Always on time, never missed. Hi, Dad. Come in, son. He looked different, thinner, older, but cleaner in the eyes. That clarity that comes when you sleep without guilt. Daniel lost everything after the TV show. The deal collapsed within 24 hours. Investors don't buy companies built on family drama. The startup was sold 3 months later for $400,000, barely enough to cover debts and severance. Now he worked as a senior developer at a mid-level tech firm in San Jose, making $85,000 a year. Good money, honest money. Money earned without someone else's disability payments or sold medals. Brought dinner, he said, holding a bag from a Chinese restaurant. Kung Pao chicken, like Mom used to make. We sat at the kitchen table, the same one where the empty frame used to be. It was gone now. I donated it to the local VFW, where it now holds a folded flag for another veteran's family. How's the new apartment? Not bad, small but cozy. 800 SQFT in Fremont. Catherine helped with the move. Catherine surprised everyone by staying with Daniel. Turns out the old money princess had more character than her tech fiancé. She called me 2 weeks after the broadcast to apologize and invite me to the wedding. Dad, I've been thinking about something. What's that? I want to make it all back to you. Not just the money that'll take years, but the respect. I want to earn the right to call you father again. I looked at this man, my son, who had learned the hardest lesson. That success without honor is just an expensive failure. You're already making it back, Daniel. $500 a month towards the debt. The Sunday calls, and not a single missed Veterans Day in 6 months. It's not enough. It's a start. We finished dinner in silence. When Daniel stood to leave, he paused at the door. Dad. Yeah. Thank you for your service. He said it without prompting, without cameras, without an audience. Just a son honoring his father. Roger that, son. Some battles end with surrender. The best ones end with understanding.